Welcome to the Middle School Cafe podcast, where we're serving up fresh strategies and solutions for ELA teachers just like you. Join us as we explore proven methods to bridge the achievement gap and help every student reach their full potential. Whether you're a veteran teacher or just starting out, grab a cup of coffee and a notepad and let's get started. Here's your host, Carolyn Wall.
All right, everyone. Are you ready to start planning for the final term? My district teaches 3 trimesters, so we started trimester 3 the week before spring break. I love this time of year. There's something about the final stretch that feels a little different. Maybe it's the warmer weather, maybe it's the excitement of summer creeping in, but for me, it also means a little more autonomy in my teaching. After months of following a canned curriculum, I finally get the chance to bring in some activities that our new curriculum just doesn't allow for. One of my favorite ways to take advantage of this flexibility is with student-led book talks. They're the perfect way to channel that end-of-year energy into something productive. They keep students reading, thinking, and discussing, but in a way that feels different from the structured lessons we've been doing all year, especially if you've been tied to a canned curriculum like I have. I'm very much looking forward to a little more freedom with my class and doing a book talk round at the end of the year. I already have my library days scheduled for students to check out their books. Before we dive into today's discussion, I want to take a moment to explain what I mean by student-led book talks. What my students are doing is somewhere between a traditional book talk and a book club. A typical book talk is often more like a presentation. One student shares a summary, talks about why they like the book, and tries to convince their peers to read it. But in the student-led book talks my students are doing, there's an added element of discussion, collaboration, and student ownership. Instead of just delivering information, students engage with each other's ideas. They're not just sharing books, they're sharing perspectives, asking questions, and making connections. There's more back and forth conversation, and because the students guide the discussion, they have more control over what they want to focus on, what they want to talk about. This approach bridges the gap between an individual book talk and a full-fledged book club, but doesn't require everyone in the group to read the same book. It keeps things structured enough to be meaningful, but open enough to let students take ownership of their reading experience. When students feel like their thoughts and opinions matter, they naturally become more engaged. So why introduce student-led book talks in the last quarter or trimester? By this point in the year, students have built their reading skills, they've been through state testing, and they've tackled heavy academic work. Most likely you have 8 weeks or so until the end of the year and students are restless. Summer is around the corner and their motivation starts to dip. If you teach 8th grade, you also know this is the time of year where students begin to focus on high school and their attitude toward middle school changes. This is where book talks can make a big difference. Instead of fighting against dwindling motivation, we can lean into what students are craving: more choice, more autonomy, and more engaging discussions. A book talk shifts the focus from what they perceive as hard academic work to what do you want to read and talk about. I'm not saying that the work we do before state testing isn't valuable, but for many students, there's a mental shift after testing. They see it as the signal that the hard part of the year is over, and now it's time for something different, something fun. Book talks give them that sense of fun and independence while still keeping them actively learning and practicing key skills. Book talks work so well at this time of year because they blend engagement with learning in a way that feels fresh. By shifting the focus from teacher-created assignments or textbook activities to student-led reading and discussion, we tap into students' natural curiosity and social nature. Instead of just reading to analyze, students are reading to discuss, which, let's be honest, is how readers interact with books outside of school. Another benefit of book talks is the flexibility they offer. Unlike a full quest novel, where pacing a discussion is teacher-led, book talks allow students to set their own reading goals, within a reasonable structure, of course. And then there's the social aspect, one of the biggest reasons students love book talks. By this time of year, students have formed friendships and connections that can enhance their discussions. They're more comfortable with each other, they know how to work together for the most part, and they're often more willing to open up in conversations, especially when the topic is something they're genuinely interested in. And as a teacher, students love to talk. Whether it's about what they did over the weekend, the latest TikTok trend, or something that happened in the hallway between classes, they are constantly taking and interacting with each other. Instead of trying to quiet them down, a student led book talk channels that natural energy into meaningful conversations about books. It provides a structured space for students to express their opinions, challenge each other's ideas in a safe and controlled environment, and make connections to their own lives, all while practicing essential discussion and critical thinking skills. Book talks also create a sense of community within the classroom. When students get to read and discuss a book with their peers, it becomes a shared experience, something they can bond over. Even students who may not usually participate in class discussions often feel more comfortable speaking up in a small group setting, especially when they're talking about a book they actually enjoy. It's amazing how often students who are reluctant to speak in a whole class discussion will light up when they're talking with their peers in a small group about a book or a story they've connected with. Beyond just academics, these discussions also help students see different perspectives. As they listen to their peers' interpretations, they begin to realize that reading isn't just about finding the right answer. It's about thinking critically, forming opinions, and being open to different viewpoints. These are skills they'll carry with them far beyond the classroom. But one of the biggest reasons book talks work so well, student choice. When students have a say in what they read, their engagement skyrockets. They're no longer just completing an assignment, they're invested in the experience. Instead of being handed a book and told, "This is what we're reading," they get to explore options and choose a book that genuinely interests them. That simple act of choice makes a huge difference in motivation. We know that when students are given autonomy in their learning, they take more ownership of it. Choosing their own book gives them a sense of control over their reading experience. It's no longer about reading just to meet a requirement. It's about reading because they want to. That feeling of empowerment can be especially meaningful for struggling readers, who often feel like reading is something they have to do rather than something they can enjoy. And let's not forget, choice also means meeting students where they are. In a traditional whole class novel, some students may struggle to keep up, while others may lose interest because the book isn't at their level. Student-led book talks allow for a more personalized experience, ensuring that every student can find a book that fits their reading ability and interests. Whether they love fantasy, historical fiction, or fast-paced mysteries, they have options. And that alone makes reading feel more approachable and enjoyable. By giving students the power to choose, we're not just keeping them engaged, we're helping them build confidence as readers. We're showing them that their preferences and opinions matter, and that reading isn't just a task to be completed at school. I know that anytime we hand over more control to students, there are always a few concerns that come up. What if students don't actually read their book? What if they realize they picked a book that isn't a good fit? What if they don't finish in time? What if they won't discuss? These are all valid concerns, but the good news is there are simple solutions that help students feel supported while still holding them accountable for the reading and activity. A challenge with independent reading is that some students just won't make time for it outside of school. That's why I build reading time into my class schedule whenever possible. Even just 10 to 15 minutes a few times a week can make a huge difference. Giving students time in class removes a major barrier, especially for those who have busy schedules or don't have a quiet place to read at home. I've built independent reading into my schedule already, so this isn't new for my students. But if you haven't already established reading with your class, be sure to build in some time to build their stamina for reading. While important, this might lengthen the time needed for the unit. Another concern you may have is, what if a student chooses a book then realizes a few days in that they don't like it? Maybe it's not what they expected, or maybe it's way too challenging. I always give students an opportunity to switch books, but with a time limit, usually about a week into the unit. This takes the pressure off of having to find the perfect book the one day we are in the library, but also keeps things structured so students don't keep switching and falling behind. I set the expectation that if you don't like your book, you have one chance to swap it out. But after that, you need to stick with your choice. This helps students pay more attention when choosing a book. helps them take ownership of their reading while still giving them a little flexibility. And then there's the biggest worry I hear from teachers. What if students don't finish reading before the discussion? Here's the thing, not every student will finish, and that's okay. The goal of book talks isn't just to get to the last page, it's to engage in discussion and practice thinking like a reader. This is also why I schedule check-ins or conferences with students. These don't have to be long, just a quick chat to see how they're feeling about their book, what's happening in the story, and whether they're staying on track. These check-ins serve two purposes. They help me catch potential issues early, like if a student is struggling with comprehension or isn't making progress, I can provide the needed support. They remind students that their reading matters. They know I'm checking in, and that extra layer of accountability helps keep them motivated. At the end of the day, student-led book talks work best when students feel supported but accountable. Giving them time to read in class, allowing one book switch, and scheduling check-ins keeps students engaged without unnecessary stress. So, if you're looking for a simple but powerful way to keep students engaged as the school year winds down, I highly encourage you to try student-led book talks. They give students choice, ownership, and meaningful discussion opportunities, all while still practicing key literacy skills. If you're new to book talks or want to try a structured approach, be sure to check out the show notes where I've linked a resource to help you get started. You'll find everything you need to set up student-led book talks in your own class. And if you've already done student-led book talks, I'd love to hear about your experience. What worked well? What challenges did you face? Come share your thoughts with me. You can reach out on social media or in our free Facebook group. And one last thing, if you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful, I'd truly appreciate it if you could leave a review. Your reviews help other teachers find the podcast and bring more teachers into our conversation. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Until next time. Thanks for joining me today. As a reminder, a new episode drops every first and third Tuesday, so be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. Be sure to visit middleschoolcafe.com to find links to everything mentioned in today's show. Until next time.